The Indiana Pacers quietly had undergone one of the best trade deadlines in the league. This is a fact I believe is not being talked about enough, and I think we're missing out on a huge potential rebuild going down in Indiana. How's it going, guys? Today we're going to be reviewing the trade deadline moves of the Pacers, evaluating where their roster sits at now, and we're going to be talking about how this team may develop into one of the best in the East. Let's get into it. The Indiana Pacers were one of the noisier teams at the trade deadline, making 3 trades. The first one was sending Caris LeVert to the Cavaliers for Ricky Rubio, a first-round pick, and a few second-rounders. Not gonna lie, this one does kinda sting for the Pacers, but I do see a reason behind doing it. I've always been a LeVert fan since his time in Brooklyn, and he was a solid, well-liked player for the Pacers, averaging near 24-4 this year. However, there is some benefit for this trade in Indy. LeVert had a contract extending through the 2023 season compared to Rubio's, which expires at the end of this season. And the first round pick has a lottery protection on it, but the Cavaliers are also a near lock for the playoffs, which is really weird to say. So they lose LeVert, but they do free up some cap space and get a draft pick. It sucks to lose talent, but overall, it's good for the timeline of their rebuild. The next trade was sending Torrey Craig back to the Phoenix Suns for Jalen Smith and a second-round pick. Craig had been a solid player this year, but getting another young player who in my opinion has plenty of potential is a huge win for the Pacers. I already made a video covering Jalen Smith, but to sum it up for you, Smith has potential to be an excellent modern NBA center. He has good touch around the rim, he's shown flashes of being able to shoot the ball, and he's a pretty solid rim protector as well. He is a bit undersized but more athletic than your typical center. Not to mention, in 4 games he started for the Suns, he was averaging 17 points, 10 rebounds, and 1 block per game. The Suns did decline Smith's rookie option, meaning the Pacers will have to sign him for less than $4.7 million this offseason, but I really do hope to see him return because I could see a big return on his re-signing. The Pacers sent Domantas Sabonis, Jeremy Lamb, Justin Holiday to the Kings for Tyrese Haliburton, Buddy Hield, and Tristan Thompson. Teams around the league did believe that the Kings were eventually going to have to break up the De'Aaron Fox and Tyrese Haliburton duo. Fox had just received a large contract the year prior, and Haliburton had shown such flashes of greatness, it would just be dumb for the Kings to trade him away. Most teams didn't even bother to offer Haliburton a trade because they just thought he would have been untouchable from Sacramento. That was anything but true though. Haliburton was surprised to even hear that he was traded. When his agent first told him, he said he thought his agent was joking just because it would be crazy for the Kings to even make that sort of a trade. And even though both Haliburton and Kings fans were hurt from it, Haliburton did also pledge that he's going to put everything he can into Indiana. Haliburton has shown plenty flashes of potential, and we'll talk about him in a moment. It wasn't all bad for the Kings, as Domantas Sabonis is a great win-now player, so I don't know why the Kings would go for him. De'Aaron Fox and Domantas Sabonis definitely seem like a solid duo to have, but the Kings really just are not in a win-now situation, and they're still only 16 years into their rebuild. Maybe Sabonis will help them kind of get on the edge of a playing team, but still, just doesn't make a lot of sense seeing Sabonis go. If you want to look at it from one perspective though, the Kings did get the best overall player in the trade, but this really isn't here to review that trade, so let's talk about Tyrese Haliburton for the Pacers now. This year, Haliburton is averaging 15 points and 7 assists while making 2 3-pointers per game at a rate of 40%. He's an amazing playmaker, great 3-point shooter, especially off the pull-up, has a great step back, and is a solid overall scorer. With that, he's also putting in 2 steals per game, and at the time I'm writing this, he's averaging 20 points and 11 assists, and albeit only 4 games for the Pacers. Haliburton is only 21 years old, but he is already proving he could be a point guard to build around. Another valuable asset coming over with Haliburton is Buddy Hield. I feel Buddy Hield is one of the more complex players in the league. I do like his talent, but he also does have a massive bag with him. This year, Hield is averaging 14 points per game while making 3 3-pointers at a rate of 37%. This is actually down a year for him, as he is a career 40% 3-point shooter, making him statistically one of the best of all time. However, he is 29 years old, getting $20 million a year through 2024. I think Hield is a pretty solid player, but he is also overpaid, and I doubt he's going to be part of the Pacers' long-term plans. The Kings may have got the better player, but the Pacers got their franchise point guard, as well as fixing the timeline on their rebuild. This trade deadline, the Pacers freed up cap space, gained a solid young center, and their franchise guard at the trade deadline. I would definitely call this a huge win for Indiana. So let's get on to the rest of the team, as I believe the Pacers are loaded with assets and young potential stars. One of the most exciting parts of this roster is Pacers rookie Chris Duarte. This year, Duarte is averaging 13, 4, and 2 and has also been a pretty solid defender for Indiana. With that, he is also putting up nearly 2 threes per game while shooting 36% from 3. Coming into the league, Duarte won the Jerry West Award for the best shooting guard in college basketball, and scouts gave him plenty of potential for being a great 3-and-D player. However, Duarte is also one of the more mature rookies in the league, as he is already 23 years old. This can often limit a player's ceiling, but players who spend more time in college tend to come into the league a little more mature and have overall round better games. So just for one last time, let's flash back on that Sabonis trade, because there is also one other reason why this trade was a huge win for Indiana. A big reason of this is because of Myles Turner. Turner is someone who I've considered making a video on for a while, but I also wanted to hold off for a Pacers video. But essentially, Sabonis and Turner are both really solid centers, but they can affect each other when on the court at the same time. Again, this is another duo that must have been broken up, but it also sucks to give away a player you know is good. So let's talk about Myles Turner, and let's also discuss why he's one of the most underrated centers in the league. When discussing what it means to be a 3-and-D player, we typically think of this in the context of a wing. But in my opinion, Myles Turner sits as one of the best 3-and-D centers in the league, and someone that any team could use. This year, Turner is averaging 13 points and 7 rebounds, but he's also leading the league in blocks, averaging 3 blocks per game in only 30 minutes of game time. His defensive field goal percentage is amongst the best in the league, with rim protectors such as Rudy Gobert, Joel Embiid, and Evan Mobley. With that, he's also making 1.5 3-pointers per game at a rate at about 33%. This is actually a bit of a down year, where his best year was up to 38% from 3. But unlike other centers, Turner can hit threes off the dribble with a sidestep or even a pump fake before shooting. According to NBA.com, Myles Turner sits in the 61st percentile of pick and roll men. But I'm hoping that the Pacers have now added a gifted playmaker in Haliburton, and not him having to share the floor with another big, we can see Turner put in even more work down low and off of screens. I am a little surprised that Myles Turner wasn't traded, as his name was flying around plenty before the deadline, especially with the Warriors and the Hornets. But should the Pacers decide to keep him in their long-term plans, he's only 25 years old and has 7 years of NBA experience. Another interesting player to mention is someone who has been forgotten about in the eyes in the league, just like the Indiana Pacers. That would be 6-year guard Malcolm Brogdon. Brogdon sits as the controversial 2016-17 Rookie of the Year. After spending a few years in Milwaukee, he was traded to his now home in Indiana. Many people have already forgot about him for a few reasons. First of all, Rookie of the Year is kind of a meaningless award. Second, like Duarte, Brogdon came into the league as an older rookie, being 24 years old. Many teams tend to skip over these older rookies, as they often hit their ceilings quicker and typically aren't as good as the more raw talents that enter into the league. But quietly, and I mean very quietly, Brogdon grew into one of the best guards in the league. Last year, he averaged 21.6 rebounds, 5 assists per game on solid shooting across the board. He hit 2 3-pointers per game at 38%. With that, he's also a pretty solid defender. His stats and shooting are down a little bit this year, however he has also missed a decent number of games as well. Regardless, he sits as one of the better backcourt players in the league. If Indy decides to keep him in their long-term plans, I would love to see what a backcourt including him and Haliburton would look like. If not, his talent would also work well on a contender that is just missing a guard. He is a slight overpay at $22 million a year, but he's still a very solid, severely underrated player. And the last notable starter to talk about is the bubble Michael Jordan. TJ Warren missed most of the year due to a foot injury, but last year he was also a 20-point per game scorer as well as a 40% 3-point shooter. He is a free agent this year, but there is a mutual feeling between him and the Pacers on re-signing this offseason. I've already talked about Jalen Smith and Buddy Hield. Like I said, go watch that Smith video. Two other notable players I saw on their roster were their role guys in TJ McConnell and Lance Stevenson. Like me, you were probably surprised to hear that Stevenson was still in the league, and he has been in quite limited minutes, but he has also had multiple surprising 20-point games and is averaging 19 points, 8 assists, and 6 rebounds per 36 minutes. With play like this, I imagine the Pacers will want him back, and Stevenson has expressed wanting to retire as an Indiana Pacer. TJ McConnell isn't anything special, but I would say he is also one of the better backup guards in the league. So from a roster standpoint, I actually do like this Pacers team. Things aren't there quite yet, but they are very slowly falling into place. They have quite a few young players who are looking to be stars, and with that, they have guys who could easily be traded for picks should the Pacers want to go even younger. So the roster looks bright, and the cap situation plays into that as well. Next year, the Pacers will get Warren, Rubio, and Tristan Thompson contracts off the books, although they may bring back Warren, probably in the low teens in the millions. Next year will be the last season for Turner on his contract. They could re-sign him, hopefully for less, they could trade him, free up cap space, and hopefully collect more picks on even younger players. Hield's contract will go through the 2024 season, but then he may be gone. But the key thing is that they have Haliburton, Duarte, and Brogdon on their roster for the next few years. Draft-wise, the Pacers have all their first-round draft picks and are very likely to have the Cavaliers' first-round pick this year as well. If the Pacers can avoid handing out any large contracts and basically making any mistakes, trusting the process, I imagine a year or two from now, we will slowly start to see this team fall into place. Now, I will say that is an if. The Pacers have to avoid giving out bad contracts and trying to bring players in for no reason. We all know Indiana isn't exactly a big free agent destination, so if guys aren't getting paid the bag, they don't have a reason to come. Of course, they will also need another draft pick to go their way, although there is a good chance that they're going to land within the top 8 this year. Lastly, they have to form that winning culture. I imagine both this and next year will be tanking seasons for the Pacers, which can be great draft-wise, but instilling a culture of losing can be devastating to a team's morale, player development, and fan interest. So while they're gonna be losing a lot for the next few seasons, and it's not something too concerning, they can't be losing in a way that affects the development of guys like Duarte, Haliburton, or Jalen Smith. But the Pacers have some true talent and plenty of guys who can be traded for more assets. They have one of the best young guards in the league and plenty of draft spots to capitalize on. It's easy to forget about the Pacers, but within 3 or 4 years, I could see them being one of the best teams in the East.